from data at the heart of production, we're going to go into what I think is really the heart of transformation in European automotive production and the whole industry right now in terms of battery cell and gigafactory ramp up. So as mentioned, of course, there's tremendous opportunities in this evolution and revolution happening, not least to huge capital investment and mass reindustrialization when we talk about the battery side of it. But you know, as I kind of said in the opening, it's not easy. It's not to say that Europe has an easy go of it, and we just take the topic of energy alone and translate that into what is required for gigafactories and battery production and batteries. There is a huge challenge here. Supply chains, localization, equipment. It's not all just there waiting, and there are other regions which are further ahead. And in this next session, you know, we really want to talk about. We're gonna get into. We have some really key leaders in this side, both at all at different stages of battery cell and battery production. With one major company which is just about to launch a gigafactory here for battery cells, and two others which are planning and gearing up for it. So I'm going to introduce our next panelist. We'll get the slide up in a moment to show you as well. Here we are. Supercharging manufacturing, scaling up battery production in Europe. So our first huge plans as well in Hungary, in Debrecen, with the gigafactory to come. He's 30 years in the industry, has a background from tier suppliers, powertrain, but has made quite a transition. I think also worked at Samsung earlier, and as mentioned, since 2015, he's president for Europe for CATL. Very pleased that Matthias Zentgraf could be with us today. Thank you, Matthias. Very nice to have you with us, Mr. Zentgraf.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you as well. The next expert is something of a serial entrepreneur. Yes, please join us. A serial entrepreneur in the battery gigafactory world, and is currently building up plans for a huge gigafactory in Italy on a 100-acre site of a former Olivetti factory. And for good measure has also founded something in California in the US as well, having previously also kicked off the British Volt project in the UK. Very pleased that Lars Carlstrom, founder and CEO of Italvolt, can be with us here today. Please, Lars. Nice to have you here, Lars.
Nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And our third panelist has also come out of a powertrain and ICE background, but is really now taking key roles in the battery side. He was until recently leading strategy and sales for automotive cell company ACC, a joint project with Saft, Stellantis, and Mercedes. And earlier this year, he helped join and found Basquevolt, which has plans to build a solid-state battery in Spain later in the decade, and also a number of important new anode and cathode electrolyte technologies. Very pleased that Francisco Carranza, the CEO of Basquevolt, is also here with us. Welcome, Francisco. Thanks again.
Good to see you.
You as well. So again, as mentioned here, we have key players, different stages of the manufacturing and launch process, but as I think we'll find, all encountering a number of similar challenges. But let's just start with a bit more grounding of where you each are in the gigafactory phase. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Zentgraf, as CATL, of course, increasingly a world leader in this, and certainly now in Europe. Tell us a bit more about where you are now in Arnstadt with your production roll-up and ramp-out to come.
Okay, thank you, and good morning to you. Yeah, where we are, as you mentioned it, we acquired the former solar panel plant in 2019, and within this plant we modified it and we started module assembly production, fully automated already more than 1 year ago. We are delivering already here. And in parallel, we are building up this big building dedicated to produce lithium-ion battery cells. And yeah, most of you maybe know, it's not, everybody is talking, a semiconductor plant is very complex, but the specialists, they know such a battery plant might be even more complex, the building, because you not only need to control the clean room conditions, you also need to control this humidity. And this costs a lot of energy and make your assets more complex. So it's very a challenge to build up such a plant and get it into running, but we are highly confident we can push the button within this year.
Which is exciting, because that's very soon, to say the least. And then you also, just for good measure, as I mentioned it earlier this year, big announcement to come in Hungary as well with the Brecna. So, so there, I think the plan is to later in the decade, an even bigger gigafactory.
Yeah, okay. So we are meanwhile, the 5th year in a row, we are the world market leader for lithium-ion batteries, especially for automotive usage, but also other areas, and majorly driven by the Chinese automotive market, it's clear. And especially in the last 2 years, the forecast for the breakthrough of the e-mobility in the worldwide markets changed drastically, which makes us to consider, okay, we are number one, and what is our perspective? And we anyhow had in mind to build up more factories all over the world. So what happened is we taken the decision, which was already in planning earlier. So this led to the decision that we will build up our second plant in Hungary, what you mentioned in Debrecen area.
And so Lars, let's turn to Italvolt now. That's also repurposing an existing factory. So there's already a theme there, I think, as I mentioned, in terms of reindustrialization. Tell us a little bit more about what stage you're at now in terms of your ramp up, technology partners, etc.
Thank you. Yes, we are, as Matthias also said here, building a gigafactory is one of the most complicated things you're actually doing today. It's has some multiple layers of difficulties that you need to overcome in the process. We are currently just finalizing our engineering process, which is been lengthy and challenging from many perspectives. It's also that we need to future-proof our production, and we can clearly see that we are now engineering today. Maybe it's not what we're going to produce when the factory is built. So therefore, it's a big challenge to future-proof the factory. We can clearly see that semi-solid batteries are entering in the space, and which will significantly reduce both in energy consumption, the need for space, the capex will be a lot lower. So I mean, there are a number of things that we need to address in this process, and we hope we've been able to do it in our modular engineering model that we have created. And so we are applying for building permits at this moment, and that's where we are currently, and hope to be in production in late 2025 with the first lines. But I haven't said that the whole entire factory will have the same technology as the first couple of lines. It might change also during this time frame. So it's very exciting, but also very challenging. That's a good summary.
So again, yeah, just highlighting what you said there, planning for mass scale production, for which the technology is shifting and changing within years, or a matter of just a few years, obviously presents some big production challenges. And just as a quick follow-up, Lars, I know you weren't planning to develop your own battery technology. I think you're partnering or looking to partner with experts.
Exactly. We have entering actually at this moment a joint venture with a technology partner, and on the fast charging technology, and we are going to produce NMC 811. And also we'll have a base technology for more simple applications. And this is something we'll announce here in the next days. And we expect this to bring us forward in the process, and also be able to create the blueprint for eventually rolling out more factories, not especially in Italy, but maybe in other places in the world, as we also are engaged in a project in California, and where we have hyperlocal concept, as we have both lithium and energy at the actual site of the factory. And we are now just trying to engage with partners for building lithium refinery nearby, so we can have, it's a very, very hyperlocal concept over there.
Francisco, so here, obviously, solid state is developing a bit later in the decade, but tell us about the factory and gigafactory plans that you're already laying the groundwork for now to industrialize at the same time as this technology is being developed.
Yes, I think engineering a gigafactory is extremely complex, as said. And that's why we also choose just to license our technology at this early phase. Because doing two things, that we are not CATL, which is a very important player, and have a totally different platform to build this business from. And so therefore we realized that the engineering of the factory itself is so complex and so advanced. So it's at the same time start developing a technology is not possible. It's also very costly and too risky for us. So we are now rolling out the factory in Italy, in northern Italy, which is in Scarmagno, which is very close both to France and Germany, where we have offtake opportunities to the OEMs in these countries, and also for sure in Italy, where we are also interacting with the customers. And the second project is, like mentioned, Zentgraf in Imperial Valley, Salton Sea. We actually launched the project in April this year, and we had the opportunity to have Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm at site during our launch, which was very exciting. And that project we are very proud of, and we can see that's something I would like to discuss later on also, where we are positioned, China, Europe, and America, and where we are going right now, and what kind of challenges we have in Europe compared to how the situation now is in America, which is actually, I would say, Europe is still ahead of America, but with the current support from the American government, it will not take long before America is passing Europe, as we are currently a bit paralyzed for a number of reasons. We can go in more into deep during the discussion here.
We are going to get into that, and I think there's a gigafactory being built just below us at the moment, so apologies for some of the vibrations that we hear, but I assure you the building is sound and secure. Before we go into some of those challenges, Francisco, can we talk a little bit about Basquevolt's plans? Because you're, again, as mentioned, you're targeting solid state, planning a factory around that. That must be a challenge too, because the technology is being developed and industrialized in parallel. So tell us a little bit about your plans and ramp up over the coming years.
Yeah, well, thank you. Indeed, I mean, our point of view is we have a major cost issue at the moment in the market. So we have a lot of ambition, a lot of expectations. The volume will be very high, that we're going to have a tremendous market share for electrification in transport. But the reality is that we still have a significant price gap between combustion engines and electric cars. We need to find solutions to significantly bring down the cost of that technology. And for a young company starting in this industry, it is very hard, not to say impossible, to go and fight with the same technology as the big guys like CATL is. So we believe that it is important for us to use the brain power we have in Europe, the great scientists we have in this region, to push further a new technology that is intrinsically better than the classical and traditional liquid electrolyte technology. On the other side, it will take longer. It means that the technology is not ready yet, so we need to fight on the technical area, pushing the boundaries of what batteries are capable of doing before we are stepping into manufacturing at larger scale.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so now we've got a good lay of the land, what each of your companies are doing in planning, and we've got a sense of some of the issues you're facing. But I want to get deeper into them now. So, Mr. Zentgraf, starting with you, just about or soon to push the button on battery cell production. I mean, what are the biggest barriers that you're facing right now? What are the challenges that for you as indeed a major player, but still a first mover in Europe here are?
Okay, this plant in Arnstadt area will be our first plant out of China, for sure. And In China, building plants is going much, much faster because there are other boundary conditions and processes like over here in the mid of Europe, and we know all the Germans, they are very precise, and if you apply for permission, you have to bring 50 proofs and so on. This takes longer. Unfortunately, and all of us in the world, we had this, were affected 2 years ago by this corona effect. We just made the groundbreaking ceremony and then started to dig the ground, and then we had corona. But anyhow, we managed also this. Nobody in the world was prepared to handle this. Yeah? So if you're workers, construction workers going home for a Christmas holiday and don't come back at the beginning of January, you're standing there, what happened now? Yeah? Anyhow, we made this. This was a real big challenge. And anyhow, we made it. The plant is nearly finished. Yeah? The installation is still ongoing in the last steps. And this was a big thing with all these boundary challenges and the technology. So this is our advantage. Yeah, I mentioned it beforehand. It's more or less the same technology what we have already launched in China plants and transferring it here over to Europe. So our strategy is, and there is no room for experiments, or also if you have a complete manufacturing line with interconnected stations, you will not change it because you have to reduce the number of risk and also the risk of having defects in quality or something like that when you change some processes. Yeah? And this more or less copy-paste and establish this over here for the cell production. Module production is not that complex like cell production, we already did. Yeah? And more or less in the same way. And but we are also improving. I have to get the connect with the session beforehand, improving the interconnection of the lines and reducing the efforts, makes the processes more simple. If I listen to everybody and also hear what we already heard and we will hear in the former day, everybody is talking about data, cloud. I sit there and I think, okay, why not creating a virtual car? Yeah? So everything is virtual. Yeah? But at the end of the day, you expect a physical part. And in battery cell production, you have to consider you have 400 or even more cells per one vehicle. So the Tesla guy has 7,400 cells per one vehicle. So, and when I worked in my former life, when I was a combustion engine guy, yeah, for example, we had fuel injectors. We talked about single-digit ppm quality. Parts per million can fail, 1, 2, or 3. Best target is 0. Here in battery business, we are talking about ppb. We have to, because it's parts per billion. So this is very important. Every of the millions of cells must look the same and must behave the same over a decade of 150 or even more thousand kilometers or above 10 or 15 years. This is the expectation from the customer. And to produce one part like the other, this is a real challenge in this battery production. Because this product, same as a fuel injector or engine control unit, this product is reliable for automotive, for safety and availability of the car. And you have to trace or document the most important process steps. Yeah? If a car is coming back out of the field 5 years after it got delivered, and the customer is saying charging time is too long or the SOC is too low or whatever, then you have to know, okay, which cell is the reason or what is the reason inside this battery for making this behavior. And then the OEMs coming back to the supplier, and you have to store these data, yeah? And you have to be able to exactly say, okay, it's cell number whatever, or it's a BMS, or it is whatever, which causes this behavior, yeah? So quality issues. So I always say, I don't want to judge on the companies. I like competition. Yeah? Or battery cell doesn't look that complicated. We also do it. Invest the money. So, but here really the challenge is in the detail, even if it looks very simple. Yeah?
And just to follow on that, because we have manufacturing data experts here in the room, is the industry in Europe kind of scaled up and prepared for that level right now?
I think yes. Yeah, I'm working for a Chinese company, but I'm still somehow a little bit European or German. Yeah, so I'm in between the cultures, and I'm thinking, what can we use the best out from German engineering tradition, and what can we combine to make something new even better and to help the industry? So I think the capabilities available here in Europe or in Germany, they are quite good. But the question is, how can we use these capabilities, unless they are there, to bring this technology a further step forward? And that's why I'm thinking about, is it really necessary to store all this data? Or is it really necessary to think about CO2 footprint? Don't forget, this is automotive business. Nobody will pay you for all these process steps, and somebody has to pay the people who are doing the process steps. Yeah? So I always try to think, is it really necessary, or can we skip it around? The upcoming battery passport with a CO2 footprint upstream, yes, I fully understand. Everybody wants to know it, and we have to reduce the CO2. But I'm also thinking, what is the efforts to get this data? What does a mine worker creates on CO2 per 1 kilogram cobalt? Yeah? And we have to concentrate on this, but it's always trying to think, is this really necessary? Yeah? And simplification. Yeah? The most important is to get the line started. And everybody who produced some lithium-ion battery cells, you have to fix the processes, adjust of the whole line until you get one cell out of the line which behaves like your specification, or according to the specification. Yeah? So you have a lot of scrap. Scrap costs money. So what is the intention? You need to optimize the processes, to reduce all efforts. Energy, somebody said energy. This is, when I started at CATL, I had blonde hair. It's 7 years ago with a big afro look. Look at me now. Yeah? So energy is really, since 1 year, especially since 1 year, it's really a really challenge. Yeah? And I'm sorry if I hear all these, all these discussions. Oh, no energy. I'm always saying we need a solution. Yeah? Nothing else, nothing will get more cheaper than burning fossil fuels. For everybody is clear, but we cannot continue like this. So we do need an alternative. Yeah? And for producing, having production industry in Germany or in Europe, this is really essential. Yeah? So we should stop too many discussions or something else. We need to concentrate to make it real, to deliver, to offer a renewable energy source for a competitive pricing. Otherwise, production in Europe is obsolete. Yeah? Not only in Europe, everywhere in the world. Yeah? So this is the next challenge. Besides coming into production, we have to take care about the energy, or the renewable energy. And everybody who builds lithium-ion batteries, you have two major parts. The one is electric energy, and the other one is process heat. And the process heat is a real challenge. Yeah? You need to try the coating, or prepare the manufacturing rooms. There's a clean room and also the dry air.
Yeah. So there we see it. I mean, exactly as you point out, when we get into the detail of cell quality and management, huge manufacturing topics and challenges there. Also further back, where perhaps Lars, the challenges would be familiar on permits, on gaining all the permissions as right, but then also working. So, but tell us a little bit more, Lars, for you at your stage for Italvolt. What are the bottlenecks that you're facing now? Where do you see the risks as you kind of head towards, hopefully 2025 SOP?
Well, put it this way, there are a number of things we can do, not just from government, from European Union, we need to also look into, firstly, the supply chain situation. We all know is a big issue, it's a big problem in Europe. But also, like permitting processes for building these factories has to be more simplified. We cannot wait for years to get permits for these projects, and this also goes for supply chain. It could also be mining and a number of areas where permits and it has to be more easier to accelerate the process for Europe in this case. We can clearly see we have now a timeline in Europe, 2035. We say we're going to stop producing combustion engines. It's a very tough timeline. It's easy to say, but bring this to reality is hugely challenging. Like said, energy, like Matthias said, is we put us in a very difficult situation. In Germany, we closed the nuclear plants, and now we probably need to rebuild these nuclear plants again. So it's kind of stupid decision. And to fuel all this needs a massive amount of funds and also accelerate this now. Otherwise, America is going to pass Europe very quickly with their efforts they are now doing. China is already 15 years ahead of us. And so how do we accelerate this? And the other risk we also have, this transition will cost millions of jobs. So if you don't ramp up the new energy space, like gigafactories and all this, to replace these job losses, we can easily create a massive recession in Europe due to the situation with these layoffs. I talk about millions of jobs, and I don't think the politicians really thought about this. So therefore, we need to accelerate all these initiatives for supply chain, for processes, and it has to be now. It's not a time for the politicians to be sleeping in Brussels right now. They need to act fairly swiftly and very firmly to move forward right now. So it's a very serious situation where Europe is at high risk currently.
Francisco, picking up on the supply chain topic for you, I mean, is there a supply chain yet for what you're planning to do for solid state in Europe?
Yeah, that's one of the probably the biggest challenges we have is scaling up the technology. So solid state batteries are extremely simple to manufacture. So you remove basically half of the processes you have in a traditional gigafactory, but at the same time you have new components, new materials in there that actually do not exist today. So it is very important to bring with you a network of suppliers in your process of scaling up, because otherwise you end up alone with your product and not having the backing of your supply chain. And it is valid for materials like the lithium metal anode that is still not produced at a scale anywhere in the world, and it's a fundamental piece of material for solid-state batteries. And then many of the different equipment you need for production are different from what you have now. And when you start discussing with different suppliers, it is very hard to get their attention if they have a long queue of customers already waiting for the standard equipment. So we have probably this is one of the biggest challenges we have. I mean, it's not the technology itself. We are pretty confident we're going to get a product that is answering the need of the market. It's the speed at which you need to scale up the whole supply chain behind you.
Let's take up that topic for CATL as well. Obviously, again, at this stage of ramping up production or starting, where do you need to scale up more supply in Europe, more suppliers and technology partners in Europe?
So the first intention is we have the luck, but it didn't fall from heaven. We started earlier. We are already delivering on into the automotive industry. I'm always saying, if somebody is asking, oh, I want to produce lithium-ion battery cells, my killer question is how many cells you have on the road. Yeah? And this is important. Yeah? All this process upstream to get these cells on the road, to do the development, to validate, to test it in Sweden, to test it somewhere with the automotive guys. So this is automotive specific, costs time and will create experience. Yeah. So I really like competition. Yeah. So if I get also challenged by others, but this is really things. The same thing is with the suppliers. European Union, and we will see this in Europe, and we will see this also in North America. It's already started, like you mentioned. So they're asking for local content. Local content of electric vehicles should be minimum 60%. So what is the first product the people looking onto if, on an electric vehicle? It's battery. It's 30 to 40% of the total value creation of an electrified car. So they want to have the battery in the European country, including also the upstream value, material, sub-supplier chain. So we do need to identify, enable, and qualify local suppliers for a product we already have in series production coming out of Chinese production. Yeah? So, because otherwise we will not be attractive for the automotive industry in 2026 or whatever. And on top of this supplier must have the best case CO2 footprint. Yeah? So, and that's what I meant. Don't overload by regulation such a new technology system. Yeah? Who should burden this? Here sitting people from sub-suppliers, from material suppliers. They are not that big like CATL or Siemens or Bosch. They have to take the burden to develop this. So don't make it too complex. The target number one is to engage companies which are producing piston rings today or whatever, to make the transition to be an automotive supplier for battery components. Well, so this is a challenge. We have already a lot of examples. The same is for manufacturing equipment. Yeah? You said it, this intelligence, which is still available, I'm always saying, in Germany or in Europe, to make the production process more simple of lithium-ion battery cells, to control it. Yeah? We need to control particles. Particles in battery production, for example, is a killer. So you have clean room conditions. Yeah? You need this. Yeah? So maybe there are some, and I have some examples where some local-based companies made such a thing to develop a sensor device, yeah, which controls our laser welding. Yeah. This is also a reverse transfer project. We reversed it already to China because it's a good product. Yeah. This is a chance. But yeah, it's also on the motivation of the single companies, and they should not wait if somebody is coming and asking, hey, I need your device, I will tell you, I will finance your development costs, and this is not possible. Also not for CATL. We need the support of other companies, and maybe also the support of government funding. Yeah? Everybody in the battery industry knows this IPCEI thing. Yeah? What happened 2 years ago? A university, I don't judge on this, in northern Germany got €500 million subsidies. And I asked, what are you doing with 500 million euros? I tell you, you're building the 29th pilot project line or product line to deliver the proofs that you can produce lithium-ion cells. Exactly. So what is this good for? We know this, that we can produce lithium-ion battery cells. Yeah? So if I would be the chancellor or whatever, I would have say, okay, let's give this money to some supplier companies, yeah, to help the big players in the industry to achieve local content earlier and to help them to do the transition from ICE powertrain to electrified powertrain. Yeah? So there we should be more flexible. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're launching your campaign here, we know the platform that you're running on to be chancellor, so we can pick up on that.
No.
Lars, I'm sure some of those challenges are familiar to you as well, even a bit further back in the planning phase. You know, how do you now plan over the next few years to try to work with new suppliers and be on the equipment side or on the actual supply side?
Yes, we have, together with partners, launched a program to identify partners in the supply chain segment. And putting a lot of efforts into this right now, and it's for sure challenging, and it's also time-consuming to identify all these potential suppliers. And also, as I see, gigafactories are they should be local as much as possible. I mean, what the idea is to have a gigaspace where you can actually also invite suppliers to co-locate together with you. That's the ideal situation. So the more we can co-locate together, the more beneficial it is for the environment and for the factory itself. So I mean, if you can create gigaspaces, it's highly beneficial. I mean, it supports the whole process, makes the risks with the supply chain lower, and also accelerating processes, and creates also a very good environment when it comes to developing new products and together interact with your suppliers. So I think that's very important, and that also needs a lot of space. As you do know, gigafactories itself consumes massive amount of space. As a friend here in Basquevolt, he is into solid state, which for sure reducing these requirements, which I also see is the future for sure. So therefore, identifying these large industrial areas where you can actually build this supply chain local is something also that the authorities should engage in, and furnishing spaces for these kind of investments. If they are on top of this, they could actually create massive amount of jobs for this region who's making these steps and furnishing these opportunities. Make sure that you have massive grid connection, which is a huge challenge in this industry. Just to identify a site for a gigafactory is very difficult. It's a very few sites that are capable in each country to support such industry. And on top of that, if you're going to have a supply chain around this also, it's even more. So I think those who are smart and those regions who are making this decision, they can create tens of thousands of jobs in the area if they realize how to furnish a gigaspace like this.
And Francesco, will you take similar approaches also with your partners to identify potential suppliers to help either transition or develop that with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in our case, the partners need to be identified very early in the process, because they need to adjust their product to adapt it to a solid state electrochemistry that is not too far away, but it's not identical in terms of the cathode material or the different components you have in the battery. So there is a lot of R&D work before you actually started to scale up.
Excellent. I think that I've had a few questions come through on the live feed, but if there's anyone in the audience that wants to add a question or comment, actually we have right, we'll start here and then we'll go there. If we can get a microphone, I have a team. They just need to be a little faster, like the automotive industry. We'll get a microphone up to the front so that we can hear it. Yeah, there we go. Andy, right here in the front, and then we'll go to Sione in the second row. So if you can just get the mic, say your name and company, and tell us your question.
My name is Markus Moll. I'm coming from the metals industry. Some of my clients are on the wall here. You mentioned the CO2 footprint. One of the main arguments of the oil lobby is that the battery has so much CO2 on the rucksack already that you have to drive 200,000 kilometers, and I think it's all nonsense. Yeah? I drive electric since 9 years. My whole company fleet is electric. Yesterday I ordered my new e-tron, for example, so I'm on your side. Yeah? But where is most of the CO2 in the lithium-ion batteries coming from? Is it from the nickel, cobalt, manganese, so from the metals, or is it from other sources? So is it scope 1, scope 2, or scope 3 that you're fighting? And where are you in terms of per kilowatt?
Yeah, the last answer I will not question you, yeah, because it's competition, but it's more or less on the material side. Yeah. So for you, we focused this. Everybody a couple of years ago said, "Oh, China doesn't take care about the environment," and but especially in the last 5-6 years, we got 2 plants in China, new plants, officially certified as CO2 neutral footprint. Most of the people do not know this over here, yeah? So for sure we have positioned them in areas with a lot of geodetical height, yeah, where you have a lot of hydropower. So, but for sure, lithium production, everybody can see this in the television, is in South of America. It's very, how to say, energy intensive, yeah? You have to collect everything together, yeah? So for a new technology stream, let's say in this, you have to transport the material from another continent to another continent, yeah? And, or some materials, yeah? Also the transportation, you need to go to judge with CO2 footprint. So we roughly balanced it, but there is still for optimization, yeah? But the problem is, I don't want to judge on the people in Brussels, I was there this year. They making a big presentation to our auditorium with here, and everybody in the auditorium said, to tell them how to build the greenest battery. And then there was also a Q&A session. I asked, when I can buy this super battery cell, and how much does it cost? So maybe in 2039 and 500 euro per kilowatt hour. This is not competitive. We can do technical-wise, we can do everything. Everything is possible. The question is, what is the effort? And the same is valid for the data. I can store millions of data. This also has a CR, but does it really make sense? So this is especially at the beginning with a new technology, where nobody of here in the room knows exactly in 10 years, I need exactly the shoe size of the worker at the coating machine, because I will have a problem. Nobody knows it, so you have to store it. And maybe you need it, yeah? So, and to not overload a new technology with additional requirements, yeah, to make it as simplified as possible. And really, if you have founding money, subsidy money, concentrate what should I use this money for, inventing the wheel 100 times? Or should I use this money to support a company who want to build or switch their production from piston rings to bus bars or cell housings or whatever. Yeah? This would be more intelligent. And there, I think, is still a lot of room. Yeah? There's still a lot of room, especially in this German or European industry network, to help to make this production, effective in Europe. And the same what you said will happen in North America, yeah? With this Inflation Reduction Act. They can give a lot of support to local companies over there. Yeah?
I think it's really hard to answer your question, to be honest. It's also has to do how is your supply chain look like? Where is your supply chain? Is it local? Is it from far away? Is it from you're bringing in minerals from Africa or somewhere where you don't have really control over the process? So I think it's all, you cannot generalize it. You need to see how is this producer organizing their supply chain. So I think there can be a huge difference between batteries, and therefore also maybe a reason for certifying batteries. Some batteries have lower impact and some have higher, depending on how they're being furnished.
Well, we know all these mines, these are all our customers, and for your information, I mean, nickel is important, for example, but in China you use the LFP batteries also, which are nickel-free. What are you planning in Germany here? Is it 622, 811, or is it LFP battery?
No, the first plant in Germany will be NCM-based, because it's for automotive application, and these customers asked in the last years driving range. LFP, you have in series production in China since many years, even longer than NMC or NCM. It's for applications where you do not need this big energy density, and where you do not have, for buses, for example.
No, Tesla has LFP.
Yes, this is a couple of years ago. I'm talking now about buses. Tesla was afterwards. So, or for starting applications like Tesla, you're right. So, and this, we are helping also to make e-mobility more attractive. Means at the end of the day, okay, do I really need 700 kilometers with a 3.5-ton SUV? Is this really sensible? So you know this, it's not that sensible, but the people asking for this, these are the customers. And this is currently changing for new, smaller vehicle applications, yeah, where the focus is a totally different one, yeah. Yes, I'm driving 30 or 40 kilometers per day and I have a charging in my garage area. Charging station installation is also a big challenge, which is not in our responsibility, but it helps to break through of the e-mobility, yeah. So we are fully, and also we are working on the next generations to making this technology more simple. When you bought in 1990 a Mercedes S-Class, there was anti-slip control and automated driving. This was the first generation. Today, every vehicle has this electronic devices, yeah. Same is like battery. The next generation of batteries, yeah, is always the intention, how can I deliver the same functionality or even more with a lower number of parts? I'm talking about cell to pack or cell to chassis. So we as a driver, we CATL, we have already launched such a technology in China, and we are also looking how will be the next generation of electric vehicles look like here in Europe. Therefore, you have to very closely work together with the car manufacturers, yeah, because it is coming into the stiffness of the vehicle or the driving behavior or other things like swapping battery technology. In China, we are already doing this. Yeah. Is this a model also for the European or the North American market? Yeah? Will the customer accept this? There you have to install some other things. Yeah? So we have a lot of things to do, but you're fully right. Yeah? So CO2, and it's currently a topic of the highest interest. No?
Absolutely. We had another question I'm going to take in the second row here.
Yeah, two things. First thing is you mentioned about the quality PPB and also all this documentation, 100% documentation. That is all related, this digitalization, data analytics, because this is tool that you make sure it is getting fast and without having any manual work, you can transfer already, get into the network. So in the future, the car industries will request all those things online, not in the paperwork as you have. So you need to start already from, it's a good opportunity for all battery or suppliers to get everything digitalized. It will be in the OEMs will not have in the future anymore to getting all this information manually. So it is using the cloud, and you can give some specific cases acceptance. They can access the data, and then they will get in on the line. That is the future. So it is digitalization is not your aim, but it is tool. Without having these fast tools, you cannot have the sustainable business. That's just the first thing. And second thing, for one example, for the supplier data flow, I think there is, at the moment, we are starting OEMs to get the Catena X, the supplier chain data into those government-funded project. This European Union government-funded. I think BMW was lead, and we also joined that. And they are welcome to join a lot of suppliers into that. And we are testing the data we can put there, and starting some closed small groups to having different projects. We need to get data into some platforms to exchange it. And I think that will be probably good point to inform about those things to get more efficient, not to have any more so many manual works and capacity into that.
So if anyone has a comment on it, I think it's obviously.
I think it was to me. So maybe I expressed myself a little bit in the wrong way. So I don't say data are useless. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, just when you described your first point, I remember when you bought a car 20 years ago, you got a bit paper manual. You have to study. I got a car. If I get a car today, there's nothing. Yeah, I have to start the navigation system, and absolutely right. Too simply, what I want to say is, okay, it's a new electronic possibilities. Give us a possibility to store as much data. I only want to say, storing data is also costing energy and creating CO2. Do I really need this or that data, yeah, to make it, to keep it simple? That's what I want to say. And the second point, so we're also in discussions with this Catena X. Yeah, I'm also involved. I'm also in a working group in Berlin. Yeah, part of this to establish this. We need to have something, but as always, keep it as simple as possible. Yeah, because otherwise people getting crazy and you do not know which kind of data to need to do where. Yeah? And computing power. I don't say a mechanical engineer. Yeah, the best would be to make everything manual. Yeah. Or I was a mechanical engineer, but this is not the time anymore. Computing power is giving us a possibility to develop new material compositions. Yeah? Without computing power, huge computing power, we would not have 500 or 600 or 800 kilometer driving range with one charge today. Yeah? So we are using this in our headquarters, in our R&D center in China, yeah? Pretty much. And without this, it would even be not possible to produce these battery cells. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. We'll take one more in the front here. Nick, right behind you.
Hi, I'm Nick Holt from AMS. I just wanted to ask you, you raised a number of challenges around establishing battery production, gigafactory production in Europe. What about the availability of a skilled workforce? Is that a challenge you're coming across as well? All three of you, actually, because I know you're all establishing plants. So.
Well, I think that's a very valid question, and that's something we also addressed in being in northern Italy, where we have a significant automotive industry. I'm not saying that battery manufacturing is automotive industry, we're actually a chemistry industry. But still, many of these jobs, you can actually upskill the workforce that are now being unemployed in the future here. I think in Italy we see at least 60 to 100,000 jobs in the short term being lost in the transition. And so there we are in a very favorable place to upskill these people in the region of northern Italy, where we have a significant combustion engine industry. And the layoffs are mainly from Stellantis and Magneti Marelli. And so for us, it's a huge asset. Compared to how Northvolt, which for sure have another interesting things with green energy. But on the other hand, the backside for their production is being in the northern part of Sweden. Firstly, it's not very attractive to move there for international workforce. It's mosquitoes and it's cold, and so many are not staying more than a year, and then they are going back home or going somewhere else. So from that perspective, it's extremely important to identify not just the site, also the demography of the area. Do we have access to skilled workforce that can be upskilled? And that's something also we're also addressing to create a battery academy in northern Italy for young kids. I mean, maybe kids who are 15, 16 years old and never will go to the university or anything. We can then give them a chance to educate themselves and give them a diploma from the battery academy to become the future workers in the gigafactory. So it's a very interesting question. I think it's important to address.
Francesco,
No, on our side, it's probably one of our biggest nightmares at the moment, along with the scale up of the supply chain, in the sense that in Europe we are really good in having highly qualified scientists, people that have their PhD, 2 PhD, 3 PhD, postdocs, and they are fantastic in a lab. But when you are getting what they are doing into an industrial dimension, we are lacking the type of profile that are crossing that gap, right? So from one side, you have people that are in the manufacturing environment, and another side, scientists. So when you're bringing a technology that is really innovative to the market, you need to cross that bridge, and that's very hard to find in Europe.
Matthias, just you've got experience, obviously, the CATL operation in China is very well established now, and obviously, I'm assuming in China they've been supporting the development of those key technical people from via the universities. What's your experience now being, and you're building a plant in Hungary, am I right in saying that as well? So those areas where they've got quite a dense population of car makers and tier suppliers that already draw on high-level skills, how are you finding that kind of area of recruitment?
Yeah, first we concentrate on effort finding the people. If you talk to somebody and if you listen to the news in Germany, oh, we have Fachkräftemangel. Honestly, I cannot hear it anymore. Yeah? So, because everything is a problem. Yeah. So, and if we're talking about transition of the automotive industry, the people are shocked. Oh, 100, 200,000 people getting laid off, yeah, because we have no piston engines anymore. And if then they're asking me, hey, how much new jobs you are creating? Up to 2,000. Did you ever heard about Fachkräftemangel? If 100,000 is getting unemployed there, you can move and train them to be a better... No, this is not possible. We have to run these programs. I cannot hear it anymore. If you offer as a company interesting job, and we are talking here about manufacturing, and the aim, because everything is cost-driven in automotive, and we're talking about data, you do not need 100,000 people to build the battery cells. Your aim must be to automate your manufacturing line. Yeah? And it's a must for you to automate it and to achieve the quality. And achieve the cost means getting the number or reducing the number of people. This is the target, yeah, and the new technology. And you mentioned Hungary, so luckily we have a couple of years more time, but in this area there's a lot of automotive companies. We heard BMW is establishing a plant as well over there, and there are others. This will be also a challenge to find the number of people out of this area, or even out of neighborhood areas. Yeah. But we already started to work on this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. So maybe the last point we can finish on is actually that I wanted to raise was the one you just raised, Matthias. We're a manufacturing conference, and actually automation. I think that was the first mention of automation almost an hour and 40 minutes into the session. So you know that things are shifting. If CATL in Europe, do you expect higher automation compared to China, or is, how will that sort of scale? And then what are the targets, I guess, for others in terms of...
So we already, mass production, so how to say, extreme manufacturing is a slogan. This is a need for this industry. Yeah. So, and this is what we are concentrating on, and we already achieved higher parts per minute times with the next generation of manufacturing line, and there the industry lead is in China because they started earlier. Yeah? I don't say that a German company cannot do it, yeah? But I mentioned it earlier, we have here capabilities which helps us to simplify or to increase the quality or simplify the efforts in the process steps, also here in Germany, what we already did, and to combine it. Yeah? And then the lead is in China. They are currently the thing. So we're building more or less the same technology here, and we are bringing also good ideas to make the next level together with our Chinese colleagues. So there will not be, for sure, you will not have always everywhere the newest, modern manufacturing line. Yeah. So, but there will not be competition on this one. Yeah.
And Lars, how do you see automation? Do you envision Italvolt to be highly automated in your plans?
For sure. I mean, that's something you need to balance here and see what kind of automation are you going for, and how will it impact the production, and put it in parallel for the investment compared to the number of people you're employing. But we clearly see that we're not going, probably not for the high automation, but something in between, and we have identified for sure an opportunity to reduce the workforce significantly, as parts of the production will be in dark room even. So it's an opportunity for sure to automatize the production.
And for solid state, is that even further opportunity as the process simplified?
Same story. I mean, it is about how efficient your line is, and in terms of cost and productivity, everything that we said is full of sense. You know, when I overinvest in something that is probably not generating as much value as you're expecting. So whatever the process, even if it's slightly different here and there, it requires the same amount of automatization.
Okay. Well, I think we've sort of run to the end of time there. Obviously, still lots to talk about, but I think hopefully what the message that came out there is this is really a time to move and invest now, and maybe there's not always the funding available, but hopefully there's the partnerships available to work with existing suppliers, new suppliers, overseas, bringing together to really take advantage of these opportunities, because we see huge opportunities right on the stage here. And so I hope for those in the audience and those listening that there's some interesting motivation there as well. But I really want to thank each of you for talking so openly and honestly with our audience, and I hope you'll be around now to answer some other questions. I'm sure that will come offline. So thank you very much.
Thank you.